Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angels Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are talking about a documentary that is out right now on Netflix, and it's called The Quilters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a delightful documentary.
Yes, it's very feel good. Lots of feels.
Good. I think this might be the perfect documentary. I'm serious. Like, it's 33 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It is so impactful in that 33 minutes. So much happens. You hear from so many people about such deep, deep things.
Yes.
I've never seen anything like it.
And I think, we can talk about this when we get into it, but the choices that the filmmakers made and how they presented it, I think also was very interesting, very different. But why don't we get into it? Okay.
So I'm just going to start by, this is a short documentary. Like I said, it's 33 minutes. It's received a lot of awards already at these independent film festivals. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets nominated for an Oscar for the short film. But anyway, just going to read a little something from the Kansas City Star. Independent filmmaker Jennifer McShane came to Missouri to make her second documentary about prison life, focusing on an unusual group of men at South Central Correctional Center, south of St. Louis. The access she was given inside the maximum security facility included permission to screen the film for the inmates. Along the way, she learned an important lesson about what not to do when showing a movie inside a prison. In a rookie moment, McShane told Deadline in an interview last year, I accidentally started to go up to turn off the lights because you always watch a movie without lights on. Well, not in Max prison. So they all rushed, Jen, no. Aside from that rookie mistake, it was probably the most moving screening I've ever done because they were riveted and they loved it and understood what I was trying to do. McShane reveals the healing power of art in the daily lives of inmates who have formed a quilting circle inside the Level 5 prison in Licking, Missouri. They work in a special sewing room where they make quilts for foster children in the surrounding counties. From design to completion, the men reveal their struggles, triumphs, and sense of pride in creating something beautiful in this windowless, sacred space deep within the prison walls. They make beautiful things, McShane told Deadline. I think on a lot of levels, it's a healing kind of activity. We're a little community within a big community, one of the quilting inmates says in the trailer. Organized chaos is the easiest way to describe that room. Quilting fans across the country are excited to see attention paid to the beauty and power of their craft after seeing the film's trailer when it first debuted. If you haven't seen this documentary trailer, take a look and mark your calendars to watch on Netflix. Okay. So,
Yeah. So, our mother was a quilter.
yes.
And we grew up with quilts hanging on our walls.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember the one quilt that had every patch had
The big,
there was
the big
there's
quilt.
a name for it. There was a description of it or a name. And I remember as a kid memorizing all of them and going through them. And I don't know where the names came from.
Yeah, so she did this huge quilt. It was as big as a living room wall. And I don't know how long she worked on it. I mean, it must have been months and months, but I'm not quite sure. She was kind of obsessed with it, getting it done. So every square, which is probably like 12 inches by 12 inches, big squares with a design, and they had names like Jacob's Ladder. I remember was one of them.
Yeah.
There was one about like Cat's Cradle, or, they had these different names because they looked like a ladder, or they looked like a cradle. And these were patterns that had gone back centuries. Women in the, 1800s were, somebody named, these designs got passed down through the generations. And so it must have been probably, it was a huge quilt. It was probably 10 by 10.
It was.
It was. So, no, that would be 10 times, that'd be like 100 squares. Maybe not that many, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
And it was a gorgeous, gorgeous quilt. And over the years, somehow it ended up getting kind of trashed until at the end, it was completely falling apart and unusable. But anyway, I recognized a lot. Pinwheel was the one I recognized. Pinwheel pattern looks like a pinwheel. I recognized that in this documentary. So the documentary it profiles the men who are in this program. So obviously you can't have any kind of infractions against you. Now, mind you, this is a level 5, which is the highest level maximum security prison. So, and a lot of these men reveal they're there because they killed someone. These are violent crimes. Some of them are there with life sentences. The rest were like 25-year sentences.
Yeah.
I think the lowest one might have been, 12 years or something like that.
A lot of lifers.
Yeah. So we start out by the first quilter who we meet is this guy named Chill. I'm not sure what his real name is, but they call him Chill. And he has a 25-year sentence for first-degree assault. And he's 8 years into that sentence. And so this quilting program, they go Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And so he says that when he's up in his cell block and he's up there, he has to be a very different person because it's a jungle,
Yeah.
It's like kill or be killed. You have to be a certain way. But then he's able to leave and go to this quilting room. It's literally a room. It's not very big. And there's probably like 10 men in there, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't seem like there were that many people in the program and tons of pieces of fabric. I mean,
all donated.
Yeah. Like surrounded by fabric.
Everything they have is donated. And I'm sure including all the sewing machines, which looked quite old. And all of the, the scissors and the cutting instruments. But yeah, they had a lot of fabric, nice fabric, like that. I think they must be hooked up with different fabric stores who send them, their remnants and samples and stuff.
But it is just a small windowless room that they're all in together and collaborating on quilts. It's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, they're all like helping each other, talking to each other, because they designed these quilts. So they showed a list. They had a list of all the children who they were making the quilts for. So they knew if it was a boy or a girl. I think they maybe knew the first name. They knew something about what their favorite color was or what they liked. And like Chill, he really likes butterflies.
Yes, because his mom likes butterflies.
Yeah. So he really enjoyed making butterfly quilts for little girls. That made him happy. And so, yeah, they come into this sewing room and they can just be themselves. Like there's no fronting, there's no worrying about anything, your safety or, it's just very calm and peaceful, and everyone's talking to each other very respectfully. And yeah, that must be so weird. And then they have to go back to the general population.
Yeah. Because the other thing too is they're using scissors, they're using knives, they're using equipment,
cutting tools,
cutting things. And so it's probably, everyone's armed in this small room, but it is this very collaborative environment. And I also was very surprised to see how much creative freedom they really had, right? Besides, and they could pick whomever they wanted to pick, right? It wasn't like you get this person and you get that person. They get to pick who they're going to choose and make a quilt for. They get to pick what the colors are and how they're going to put the colors together. And they each sort of started to develop their own style, their own way of doing things. Like Chill, I think, was the one who was talking about, like, I go by color. Like I want to match colors. And then there's other people that, want to do these very intricate patterns. And that was really interesting to see, like how they thought about their quilts.
Yeah. The intricacy of some of these quilts was amazing. And I've seen a lot of quilts, not just like, from our mother, but,
Brooke's been around the block. Brooke's seen some quilts.
I've seen some quilts. I've been to the county fair probably every year. I go, I look at those quilts. I see that. I know quilting. And I mean, these are incredibly, incredibly intricate, and they look perfect. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And they're huge. They're big. It's not like a baby blanket or something. I mean, these are full size, like bedspread kind of quilts. So, this is they call it the Restorative Justice Organization Prison Quilting Project. And the mission is to make birthday quilts for every foster child in the surrounding counties. And they talked to this guy, Joe, who's the Restorative Justice Coordinator for the Department of Corrections. And, he kind of explains the program a little bit. Like I said, it's 7:30 to 3:30, 5 days a week. And then we start to meet more of the men. And so we meet this man named Jimmy, and he said that, he was looking at the list of children, and he spotted someone who had the same birthday. This was a foster child, had the same birthday as him. And, he starts choking up. He's choking up several times throughout just talking about this. And he said that really touched him. And so he chose to make a quilt for that child. And then we meet Fred, who has a life sentence. And here's the other thing, too. These men are so gentle. Just the way that they talk, the way that they present themselves and come off. You're like, I can't believe, like, why are you here? And they do talk about that.
Yeah. And that is, I think, a part of this problem, which I've said this before, which I do not believe in life without possibility of parole. I really don't. I think that everyone has to have hope. What are you going to work towards? And men, especially men, women do too, but especially men age out of violence. They age out of crime, essentially. And so that's the part that's so hard is that, yes, we hear these stories and we don't really hear much. I mean, I think this is one of the creative things that the filmmakers made this choice of. we're not going to tell the story of how you ended up here, like how, you know, what got you here. But they talk around it a lot. And one of the guys said, you know, I was doing drugs and he made a bad choice at age 20. And this is the rest of his life. And that's the thing that drives me bonkers and I know that we are trying to rectify these things because we are now, right, you know, when people do commit crimes that are under the age of 25, we are looking at them differently. We are seeing them differently. But, you know, yeah, you're a baby. You know, you are a baby. You don't know anything. And you don't do a lot of dumb things. We all do. And, you know, I'm not excusing whatever he did, but you know, they did sort of speak to that of you make a choice and it's this, and they talk about having to live with the regret of like wanting to go back in time. And like, what if I had made a different choice? What would my life be?
I think you're talking about Ricky, who he's kind of like the master teacher. He's been there a long time. He went in at 20. He's now 64.
Yeah. And that's what I was like, he's 44 years. Like, why is this? Why are we
warehousing
doing this?
him?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was talking about how he's like, I came from a good family. My family loved me, you know, he said he just ended up hanging out with the wrong people. And he said he ended up taking another man's life. And that's all we know. We don't know, you know, but yeah, like you said, I'm sure it was, he did say there were drugs involved.
Yes.
He was on drugs, perhaps. Another man talked about, alcohol. That's why I'm here, you know? So yeah, you're young, you're high, you're all amped up. Things happen.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure he didn't mean to take a person's life, but he did. And that's another thing. It's like, why are these sentences? I mean, Ricky has a life sentence. Life.
Yeah, in this country, we are so punitive. We are so judgmental and punitive of people. And yes, again, I think things are moving in a better direction, but like inch by inch. But we understand so much more now about abuse and about drugs and alcohol and about the effects on your brain. We understand so much more. It's a little bit like, why are we still doing this? Why are we still, you know, sentencing people to, you know, life in prison without the possibility of parole? Like, what would be the point? Like, what is the point of that? Then you're basically saying, we just give up on you. We're just going to give up on you.
And let's be clear. We're not saying that being eligible for parole means that if you're Charles Manson, you're going to somehow get out. Charles Manson was denied parole 12 times.
Yes.
And there's a reason, okay?
Yes.
But, you know, we don't know that maybe Charles Manson could have, this didn't happen, but he could have gone to prison and completely changed and become a quilter. I don't know. You know,
if he got on the right meds. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If he got on the right meds, if he got some help in prison, maybe things would have been. So when someone goes into prison, you don't know what they're going to do. You know what I mean? You don't know how they're going to spend their time or what they're going to do. So let's give everybody the opportunity and we'll decide,
yes,
you know, when they're there, whether they should get out or not. So it's not like we're saying, oh, just set these people free. You still have to go through the process of going going in front of the parole board and proving that you're not a danger to society. And anyway, yeah, I mean, a life sentence just seems nutty, but it didn't say without parole. So maybe some of these men do have the possibility of parole, because towards the end, I remember them talking about, you know, maybe I'll get out, maybe I'll be out. And, you know, so it seems like there's some hope for some of them. But anyway, so another thing that they highlight is just how like meticulous it is to design these quilts, because they have to, you know, they call it like gridding it out. You know, you have to, before you start, you've got to make a pattern, a grid. Okay, we're going to have this many squares and these pieces and that. And they all have a different way of doing it and approaching it. Like Chill says, I start in the middle and I work my way out. And, you know, people have their different methods. And Fred was talking about this one piece, this quilt he was working on. it had a total of 3,500 pieces.
Wow.
3,500 little pieces that all have to be sewn together and all have to be the right cut, the right angle. And I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, we see a scene of one of the quilters, I can't remember which one, who goes back to his cell at night. And then like he turns on the light and he's got his grid. And at night, he's like mapping out.
He's working on it. Yeah.
He's working on it. And that was another thing too, is they continue to work on these quilts in different ways. I'm sure they're thinking about them, like thinking.
This is their life.
Yeah.
This is their life. Yeah, they do. They're up at night thinking about it. And also, I think one of the reasons why they are so chill, there's something meditative about doing crafts, arts and crafts and quilting and other things. It's got to be, very meditative. You're focused on, these cuttings and sewings and it calms, I think it's very calming.
And also, right, we learned this when we had Carolyn on our show. I can imagine that the prison is very loud all the time, like noise.
Yeah.
And so it must be very quiet. It sounds like it's very, you just hear the machines going and then everyone's talking to each other, but it must be very calm to just be in that room.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then we meet this young man who's new. His name is Potter, and he's only 21. So he's probably new to the prison, new to the whole program. We don't get any information about his background really, but they do show him kind of stepping up. Like there's a situation where he helps out somebody else who's, sewed everything wrong, has to all be taken out and redone. And, and he just kind of steps in calmly and says, okay, I'll help you with that. So I thought that was interesting that he was just,
I also thought it was interesting that they had someone very young in the program, because I was under the impression when I saw it, because everyone was a bit older.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, they must all have to have been here for a certain length of time and shown good behavior for a certain length of time. So I don't know exactly how Potter managed to, because it seems like a coveted role. It seems like a coveted place, or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's been there since he was like 18 and, he just got in there. And the I don't know if the warden, that's not the right word. Whoever's in charge of this program, the corrections officer, he said that, he looks at these men and he says he tries not to think about what got them there. And he treats them like they're human because that's what they are.
Yeah.
So he had a very good attitude.
Yeah. What a crazy, crazy idea to treat these people, treat them like human beings, which they are. What a crazy idea. And guess what? They will treat you like a human.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's chill. He describes it, as a meditative experience. And he says, it's like you're not in here when, when you're doing the quilting. It's like you forget you're in prison.
Yeah.
And then they go through, this was hard. They go after the corrections officer makes that comment about them being human. They show some photos of these men from childhood.
Yeah.
So you see like baby Chill, and then you see 7-year-old Chill, and then you see teenage Chill.
Yeah.
And you look at them and they're in these pictures with their families and they're smiling and you're just like, what happened? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And these are human beings they're someone's child. They were once a child. They are.
Yeah. Well, I think that the other thing too is, I think it's very easy to take this attitude and think like, I don't know, it's hard to do this on a podcast, but men in prison are here and I'm way over here. Like I could never
get over there.
I could never get over there. And the reality is we are all a lot closer together than we really think we are. And I just know this from my years of working in drug and alcohol. Like people just become different people when they start using and the addiction takes over. And that's how people end up doing things that they never in a million years would ever do otherwise. And so that's the thing. The majority, I believe, I have to look, I don't know what the stats are, but I believe the majority of the reasons why people are in prison are drug related. You know, we talk about this with women, you know, it's usually women holding on to some, you know, boyfriend's drugs. But you know, that's the thing is in drugs and alcohol, it affects everybody. It's not, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't at all. And so that's the part that's really hard is like, guess what? We're not that far away from each other. We're really not.
No, we're not.
We might be closer to that. And I think that anybody, you know, can see themselves getting into a situation of if you're using drugs and alcohol, you're high, you know, you do something. And you know, if you have a gun in your hand, all it takes is 1 second to end everything. So I think that's the part I think we have to recognize that we are all much closer together because we're all people.
Yeah, no, it's true. Then we also learn that they make, in addition to making these quilts, they make weighted vests and blankets for autistic children.
Yeah, which is great.
Foster care system. So that was really nice. And then towards the end, we'll get there. This will come back around. But anyway, and then we see a whole bunch of photos of all a lot of the quilts that they've completed that are all just gorgeous. So then we're focusing again on Fred, and he talks about how he lost his son in 2000 when his son was only 15 years old, and he was 40 years old and in prison. And this thing really haunts him, obviously, and that the quilting keeps him focused so he doesn't think about those things. And he says, you know, I think that in this life, we should just be more focused on being here to help others. And yeah, these older men, God, they're so philosophical.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're saying like some really deep shit that they've used their time to really think and reflect.
Yeah. I mean, the system could work. It can work if, you know, the system could work if we could, you know, help and get people into these programs and create and have more of these programs. It drives me nuts to hear, like, you have to have people donating, you know, materials for this. It's like, I'm sorry, these prisons that are for profit are making so much money. You have enough money to get fabric and quilts and all this kind of stuff. Like these prisons, they act like they have no money. They act like they have nothing. And that's the problem is, no, they have a lot of money. There are 2 or 3 people that are benefiting from all of this. And everybody else is suffering. And another reason why I feel like prison they should be nonprofits. They should not be no one should be making money from a prison.
Also, I mean, when you're talking about a cost benefit analysis, okay, how about we spend more money on restorative justice programs so that we would have less reoffenders, less recidivism, and that would save you way more money than this fabric is going to cost you.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
Well, yeah. And I think that's the other part of it too, is in some ways for those who take it, I think it does take being removed from your family and having this time alone and being able to be reflective to really start to focus and think about your life. Like, I'm not saying that I don't think people need some form of punishment or some kind of isolation, right? Like some kind of awareness so that they can move away from whatever it is that they're doing that's getting them to this point. But I can't remember where I was going with this. But the thing is that it makes me nuts because these people, like, it's great that they're doing this for foster kids, wonderful, but you know, these men, they should be making money and they should be able to, like, the fact that we pay some of these prisoners like 5 cents an hour, that's another thing that drives me crazy. It's like, if you're making money from them, that you need to be paying them a livable wage and let them put it in an account for when they get out. Like there's so many things. This is stuff like Jeff Bezos and those guys. Like they could really do something, and they do nothing.
Yeah, and they never will.
Yeah, and they don't care. They don't care. He's too busy planning his fucking wedding.
So, Fred is working on this specific quilt he calls it like the 70s quilt. But anyway, it's got this fabric on it that has a bunch of guitars. And he realizes that he has sewn the pieces the wrong way and that everything's going to have to be, they're going to have to rip it all out and redo it, whatever. And he's starting to get kind of agitated. And then Potter, this new young guy, he just steps right in and says, I'll help you, and calmly, starts helping him. And I mean, it was just like these little moments like that just really got to me. And then this guy, Rod, who he seemed to be in charge of doing the weighted blankets, and he was reading a letter from some of the recipients, the autistic children who were recipients of these blankets. And they were talking about how that this was the greatest Christmas present they ever got, the greatest gift they ever got. Yeah. And towards the end, they did some other thank you notes from these kids were just so grateful to have. And that was the other thing too, is the men, they were very fixated on making these blankets perfect. And anytime something got screwed up, they'd be like, we got to undo it. We got to redo it. There was one where they were doing the top stitching, after you make a quilt and you put the batting in the middle and you put the back on, you top stitch it so it all holds together. And something got screwed up with the top stitching. And I think was it Fred or no, Ricky? He was like, we've got to redo this. We've got to rip it all out. So they all worked together to take all the stuff out, and they redid it until it was perfect. Because they're like, this is going to be something special that these kids are going to have for their whole lives. Because I bet you a lot of them know something about being in foster care.
Yes, I can believe that. Yes. Yes. And they get
very
it.
Special. You have your own blanket. This is your blanket. Only your blanket.
And I can imagine
you
being in the prison system, right, where things and your property is so valuable. Yeah, it's the same thing for foster kids.
Yeah.
That are, going from, and for a lot of these foster kids, right, my guess would be is a lot of them probably never had their own blanket, quilt, their own bedding, their own stuff.
Yeah. They just show up at a foster home, maybe with a bag of clothes, but they don't have their blankets and pillows and stuffed animals that they used to have at home, So it's just so much care goes into this. Psych Legal Pop will be right back after these messages.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angel's Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
So then they show I guess that, they have it seems to me like they have a deadline where they have to have all these quilts done by certain days. So they have all these quilts complete. They bag them up and they put them in a big bin. And there's a lot of them, there's dozens of them that they've been working on for, months and months probably. And they take them and they load them up in a truck, and the truck, leaves and goes to deliver them to these agencies. And then we find out that Fred got in trouble. And so he's out of the program.
Yeah, I felt like this seemed pretty fast and swift because they caught him with, I guess, a razor blade, which was, I guess, he was
Probably
working
from the shop. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was working on his quilts at night in his room, which he's not supposed to do. But they caught him, and I guess because he had this little razor blade,
yeah.
I guess that's a pretty serious infraction. And then,
yeah, he wasn't doing anything nefarious with it. Yeah. He said he was cutting and fixing clothes. So again, do we have to be this punitive? I mean, it's not like he was hiding it in his room, to use it as a shank or something. I mean, it just wasn't. And so I don't know. I hope that Fred will be able to get back in the program.
Fred was going through some things. There was a lot. Fred, his emotions were right there on the surface.
Yeah.
So I think Fred was going through some things. I mean, we don't know the full story, but that's the other part of it too, is I thought, why would you take this away from him? Now you're just punishing him even more, because I could see anybody making that mistake. I mean, did he know it was against the rules? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, he was going through something, and he was real stressed out when he was doing that guitar quilt. But anyway, they did finish it. The other men finished it for him, and so I mean, again, it was Ricky and one of the other guys, I think Rod. They have another philosophical conversation about how most people can't forgive themselves, for what they've done, and that's why they can't change. And they say you have to be able to forgive yourself before you can forgive others. And there's a lot of deep talk, deep talks going on in this sewing room. And I mentioned, the thank you cards. And then at the end, when the credits were running, they actually showed videos of these children receiving their quilts, and the foster parents like putting the quilts on the bed, and you could see the kids, reaction. And so that I thought that was really sweet. And at the end, they say that 2,000 quilts have been made and gone to nonprofits and charities and foster children from this program.
One thing was that I wish there was a little bit more information about exactly how this all started, like who came up with this idea. When they said, we make quilts for foster kids, it's like, that's perfect. That's what a great way to, do two things at once and help so many people. So it's this like, well, is this the only prison that does this? Are there other opportunities to start these things? Like, how do you start one of these programs? I mean, it's really interesting to see like how people come up with these things and how they get started and how just life-changing they can be.
I really wanted to know, who started this? How do you get it started? Why do some places have? I would imagine that it's at the discretion of the facility if they're going to let someone come in, and I'm sure it's not easy. But it's interesting because the executive producer of this is Abigail Disney, who's the granddaughter of Roy Disney, Walt Disney's brother. And it's funny, she's part of this movement that it's trying to promote taxing the wealthy.
Yeah, she's great. She's very much, again, a woman. Again, willing to say, I don't need all this money.
I have enough money.
I have enough. Yeah, I've seen some things with her, and she basically is like, what am I going to do with all this? Like, she wants to tax the rich, and she's part of these organizations. And so I'm not surprised that she would be someone. Maybe she sponsors this. Maybe she helps in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. It was a really, really well done documentary, really interesting. And just the way in which they decided to approach it, they really approached it from this place of, we're going to drop you into this world And we're not really going to give you that much information about a lot of it, because I kept having all these thoughts like, how many quilts do you think they get done in a week? How many do they need to get done? Like, how much time is it? Like, how many people per quilt? You start to think a little bit like, oh, I'd like to know some more details. But I think the idea of it really was like, why don't you just drop you in, and instead of the typical, like I was saying earlier, this typical true crime, because there is and listen, we cover true crime here, and I love, true crime and gritty stuff. So I think it's very easy to get caught up in the grit and the, what did you do? And how did you get here? And what are the things that you did? Versus like, who are you today?
Right.
And who are you in this moment in time?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because as soon as you tell someone, oh, he's convicted of this or he did that. I mean, it's going to color the way you think about the person, what subconsciously, consciously, whatever. So you don't know on it. And they didn't do that. They didn't say the only person who, and it came from him, I would think it was Ricky, was the only one who said what he did. He said he took a man's life, and that's all he said about it. But he volunteered that information. The filmmakers did not provide any information about these people other than their names and what their sentence was. And that was it. And they let the men, tell whatever they were going to tell. Super, super interesting. And just, I'm now like, I'm thinking about these men, like, I'm like, because there's so many of them out there.
Yeah, there are. There's way too many people incarcerated, and there's way too, these crazy long sentences and the 3 strikes rules and all of this stuff that was, started a million years ago. I don't know how much of this reform is really going to happen under Trump, but I wish someone would get in, we could figure out a way to change the system, because it's fixable. That's the thing. There's lots of systems that aren't fixable, that are really broken. But this is one that I really feel like a few concentrated programs, some changes really could make a big difference, I think.
Yeah. It has become so tied to politics, the Willie Horton, theory, it's like, God forbid a governor, lets someone out of prison on parole, and then they go out and they commit a heinous crime. And so every politician, every governor is so afraid of this. And it's like, we can't live like this.
No.
We have to. You cannot just do this blanket thing like, okay, well, we're just going to keep everybody in as long as possible, to protect ourselves. We have to take the time to look at people as individuals and to look at them and see, what they've done to change. And so this dovetails into the whole Menendez brothers thing that's playing out right now, because, and this is going to be super interesting. I mean, they did get resentenced, and the parole board is going to be looking at whether or not they're going to recommend parole for them. And so they are looking at what kind of prisoners they've been.
Yeah.
And they have been model prisoners. And these are the words of the prison officials. The prison officials support them. And so, just for an example, they did not, they have used pretty much every moment being incarcerated doing something. They've both earned multiple degrees. They have worked as caregivers for elderly incarcerated individuals in hospice. They've been mentors in college programs, helping other inmates get college degrees. Erik has done this whole beautification project at the San Diego prison where they both are currently. They have also they have started and participated in rehabilitation programs for other inmates. And they've worked with inmates who are going to be getting out, working with them on, okay, well, what are you going to do? What steps are you going to take? And how are you going to prepare yourself? And how are you going to set yourself up for success so that you don't end up back in the system. And these two guys, they could have just sat there and done nothing because remember, they had life without the possibility of parole up until just a few weeks ago. So they had no incentive. They had no incentive to do anything.
Well, also, I was, in anticipation of this episode, I was doing some reading about them and talking about how they both say that they had been, they'd gotten in fights. They were like, we don't initiate them, but you have to,
you have to defend yourself,
kill or be killed. And that there was a lot of focus on the two of them being celebrities, being the guards. I mean, there was bullying, they really could have walked in with a huge chip on their shoulder about, all of it and just been destructive the entire time. And, and maybe in the beginning they were. I mean, I don't know. I think in the beginning, everybody's sort of like, what am I going to do?
Transition.
And, what's going to happen. But they decided, and I was reading something where, one of the guys, someone asked them, like, how do you get through this? And it was just very much like helping other people. You have to, because when you help other people, there's hope. And, and I think that the fact that they got that so early, it wasn't, I mean, again, they're 57 and 53 or something, right? So these other men that are in the 60s, it wasn't like they aged out of violence. It wasn't like they, are like, okay, I'm done doing all this. They really, it sounds like from pretty early on, had the mentality of, I'm just not going to let this get to me. And I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do this. And again, I think that says a lot about the person and about who they are. And again, back to, no one knows what you're going to do if you're in a situation like that. And they feared for their lives. I know there's people right in the district attorney's office in LA who still believe that they weren't abused and that they're liars and they should never be released. I don't know. I know that's how some people feel. I believe them. If we want to believe women, we need to believe men too.
Exactly. We need to believe. Exactly. We need to. We're going to discount this abuse simply because they're men. I mean, no, this is wrong.
Yes, very wrong.
It's very wrong on many levels. So one of the other things that Lyle has been involved in is training guide dogs. And, guide dogs are used not just for blind people, but for all kinds of reasons. And so basically, Rosie O'Donnell, she befriended Lyle and Erik Menendez because, she's also a victim of abuse, childhood sexual abuse. And I think she just, felt an affinity towards them and their situation. I think she began communicating with them. Anyway, at some point, she visited Lyle Menendez in prison. And when she was there, she learned about, that he was training these guide dogs. And she learned for the first time that these guide dogs actually are used for children with autism. And so this is all chronicled in a new documentary that's on Hulu. It's called Unleashing Hope, The Power of Service Dogs for Autism. And she produced it. And so she has a child named Clay who's non-binary and was diagnosed with autism at age 2 and had gotten really, really bad, like was getting very, very violent. And Rosie was afraid that it was going to escalate to the point where they were going to be kicked out of school. And she was really kind of desperate, and she got involved with the, she signed up, said, she wanted a guide dog, and she had to go and complete a program. It's a 2-week training program before you can take the dog home. You learn all about everything and bond with the dog and how to take care of the dog and all of that. And so she brought the dog home. The dog's name is Kuma. And she said it basically saved her child's life. The child just became completely different, and the dog allows them to, just function.
Yeah.
And, not be, calming whatever anxieties were causing all of these issues. So like these guide dogs are used for veterans with PTSD, people with mobility issues, blind people, autistic children. I think even some of these dogs are trained for medical purposes. Like if you have diabetes or like type 1 diabetes where you like, there are dogs who can sense.
Yeah.
Or people who have seizure disorders. The dogs can sense when you're about to have a seizure, and the dog will start doing like circling you, and it's a signal that you're about to have a seizure. And you call for help. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. It was this one. The story was mainly about Rosie and this other family that have an autistic son, but it's interesting. So I wondered, though, they said that they train the dogs. So the dogs are with the prisoner is assigned to a dog, and that's your dog. But I'm like, but they're training these dogs for 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
And does the dog then go into their cell at night, or are the dogs like in a separate kennel? Or that was interesting. I'm like, do they spend all day with the dogs? But again, you can see this is how much the dogs benefit the prisoners and how good it is for them. And again, we saw a lot of lifers, more lifers who were, saying that this is really important to them and this is huge. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable to me just how, these, like, you create these programs that help so many people, like on both ends, like everybody, both ends.
Yes, it gives you a purpose, and that's all these men want. They want a purpose. They want a reason to get up in the morning and behave.
Yes,
because if you don't have any purpose or reason, someone starts to mess with you, then you're going to go off. But if you're like, look, I got to keep it cool. I'm going to let this go because I don't want to jeopardize my, this program that I'm in. It makes perfect sense. It benefits everybody. And there are so many things prisoners can be doing to help benefit people on the outside. So many things. If we got creative and sat down and said, okay, well, what could prisoners be doing and making, and come on.
No, it goes on and on and on and on. The other thing too is, don't forget, it's giving these people skills. This is the other part of it too, is the big problem is recidivism, right? So and again, that's why I'm saying, I think that if you're working in the prison, you should get a salary so that you have money when you get out. But that's the thing is that, now these guys have all these sewing skills. Now these other guys have skills in training dogs, and that can translate. I mean, there's the benefits, and the fact that really, truly, none of this is costing all that much to do any of this. And most people, and there are people that will volunteer to be a part of this. It was really interesting. I had this situation with a client recently who, had been struggling, and I'm not going to get too much into the details, but he was really, really struggling, having a hard time. And recently, last week, I think I saw him, and his mood was so different. I'm like, he's like, oh, my friends just dropped off this golden retriever that I'm taking care of for the weekend. Aww. And I cannot tell you how every time the golden retriever walked over to him and he started petting, I mean, just this smile on his face, lit up a room. And I just said to him, I said, I think you need to get a dog. And I said, and I will write you a note. I mean, I know people have a lot of issues, and I know that people are annoyed with all of these dogs that are coming on airplanes, and therapists like myself signing off on
well-behaved. I'm
signing off on all these emotional support animals. But, it really does. These animals do really help people. And he was a perfect example of someone who, he lives alone, he's single, and this dog, now he needs to leave the house. Now he needs to go to the park. Now he needs to go talk to people. Now he needs to go do this and that. And those are the things that I think are so important. And that's what dogs give you. You know, I always say we met more of our neighbors. We made more friends from our dogs than ever before, ever. Because dogs just, you know, it's just brings people together.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, well.
Anywho,
this was a really delightful documentary. And if you haven't already, I mean, it's half an hour and it'll make your day. It's really beautiful and it's inspirational. And I can only hope that this is the direction we're going in, you know, with restorative justice, criminal justice reform. Also, we can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
It's not good for us as a society. It's just not.
It's not, because we're just what are we doing? We're just cramming people together, housing them, treating people like animals.
And making it worse.
Yes.
Making it worse.
Yes.
You're taking a bad situation and making it worse by putting people in these kind of environments. They are human beings. Yes. They have made poor choices. They have done bad things. Some of the people have done really heinous things. And again, I am not talking about people who are severely mentally ill and do horrible. That's a whole nother category. Okay. I'm talking about just your run of the mill. Something happens because of drugs or alcohol. Something happens because of a one bad choice or one whatever. Well, I'm not talking about the Jeffrey Dahmers of the world. You know?
Well, there's also, what's that law with the, because there are people in prison right now serving life sentences that were put away for murder, but they weren't the ones with the gun. They didn't touch anything.
The felony murder rule.
The felony murder, right? Like, you're a drug addict and you need drugs or money, and your friend has a gun and they go off because they're crazy and they shoot this person. And you've got nothing to do with it, but because you were there robbing the store, you get the same sentence. Like these kinds of things. Yes. And again, I understand the root of why people were thinking, like, I'm sure there was some sort of case where the person who wasn't holding the gun got out and did something. But we need to I feel like what happens is that we get so stuck in this place of 25 years to life or these numbers. Like, I think we need to reevaluate where we get these numbers from, like of sentencing, and where they're coming from. And I really do believe that, we need to have like a time frame of everybody needs to be evaluated after 10 years or 15 years or something. It doesn't mean that you're going to get out. But like an evaluation. What's like going on? How are you doing? Are you on your way to getting to a point? Like, can we put you on the fast track to 20 years and getting out? Like,
yeah.
And that's the thing is that if you really think about it, if you're 20 years old and you commit this crime, maybe you can get out by 40, 45 and you're in a different place and you can then have a life. Like, we are just throwing people away for nothing. And
we need to revisit that. Yeah, because you're right. Especially if you commit a crime when you're very young.
Yes.
You need to be given special consideration for that because your brain isn't fully developed, all that kind of stuff. We have to put in systems of we review people, periodically, and we give people second chances
and hope. What if at 10 years if you said to someone, hey, if you keep going along like this, you could be out in 10 years.
Right. And they're probably going to behave pretty well.
What would happen? The other thing too, is we're not even getting into is the other problem with all of this is just the systemic racism and the fact that so many Black men are incarcerated. And, again, with the having money makes a big deal, right? All of it, just the cycles and cycles and cycles of what's happening. And if you want to break these, people are constantly talking about breaking these cycles. Well, let's help people break these cycles.
And it has to start even before because Black men are getting longer sentences than white men and wealthy white men. You remember the Stanford swimmer who got 6 months, 6 months, a year for rape, raping an unconscious woman.
Yeah.
Unconscious.
And what did his dad say? What the dad was like, well, let's not ruin his life over a mistake for a 20-minute mistake or something. It's like, oh, fuck you. that guy. I mean, but that's the thing is that this guy, Brock, gets away with whatever he wants, or all the
If that
other
were
men.
a black, if that were a black kid, he'd be in prison for life.
Yes.
Life.
Yes.
I know.
It's I don't know. I can get all started about this.
I don't want to get worked up because this was such a feel good show. But yes, we need to have more discussions about this, more documentaries about this, more looking at this. We need to look at this.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully Kim Kardashian will be.
Yeah, that's a great way for you to use your Kim.
Yes.
This is a great way for you to use this platform.
Yes.
I mean, I think this would be. I don't know.
She could do a lot.
She could. She really could.
Of good. She could open a lot of doors, just with her celebrity, and she could really get the ear of a lot of people. And, if she wants to have a legacy in the law, really, that's what she should be doing.
Yeah.
If she cares for my advice, but.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. All right.
Well, highly recommend 33 minutes.
And also Unleashing Hope, the other one that was on Hulu. That was really good too. That's a little bit longer. It's 42 minutes.
Oh,
it's a little longer, but both really good, very inspirational, and will get you thinking about what can I do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. If you like our podcast, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and also leave us a 5-star rating and review. That would really help the podcast, help people find us. We are here on Thursdays doing documentaries like this. We have been covering Sister Wives, which is winding down. That is our Monday show. And I think coming up, we're going to maybe be doing And Just Like That.
Yeah. Because Polyfamily, by the time you listen to this, the last episode happened.
Yeah.
Episodes 5 and 6. Sadly, that train wreck of a show.
Yes. Not really going to miss it. I don't know. I don't think it's ever coming back.
No. I think it's coming back. I think it's coming back.
We'll see.
Again, I mean, don't forget Sister Wives started off with 6 episodes. All these shows start off with 6 episodes, and this is their formula. So I think it's coming back.
We shall see. We shall see.
Yes.
And if you want even more of us, we do have a Patreon where you can get all of the free episodes ad-free. And you also get a weekly bonus episode where we talk about hot topics and we talk about our lives. And then also at the higher tier, you get once a month a bonus Ask Us Anything episode and a bonus true crime episode. So check us out there on Patreon. We are also on all the social medias. We're now on YouTube.
Yes, we are.
We're working on
way to YouTube.
Yes, we are working on getting that up. It's going to take some work to get the is it a site account? I never know what to call these things. Channel. YouTube channel.
Yes.
We're working on getting that up and going, but we're also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky. You can find us there.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angel's Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
That new thing? Yeah, we've got it. The Drop by GNC, bringing you all the newness that matters, handpicked by the pros who actually know what's up and what's proven to work. We keep you on top of the trends and dialed into what's next. Whether you're crushing it at the gym, leveling up your game, or thriving every day, The Drop by GNC is where the latest solutions in health and wellness land first. Non-stop innovation and fresh finds daily. Explore what's new and what's next on The Drop by GNC.